This is your Weather Extreme video for Sunday, September the 16th. I'm meteorologist Brian Peters. Looks like you need to get those umbrellas out. Looks like we're going to be in for some wet weather Monday and some cooler weather come Wednesday and Thursday. Skycam Network this morning, there's a look at Decatur. We're going to kind of go from one end of the state to the other. Clouds up there, but we are seeing a few breaks in the clouds. Also, we're got a couple of very small patches of light rain, especially over the northwest corner of the state, but I think for the most part we stay dry today, but can't rule out a small passing shower. And there's the other end of the state. There's the battleship Alabama down at Mobile Bay, and so a beautiful sunrise shot down there as the sun is coming up behind the ship. We were dealing with a little bit of a stationary front across the northern part of the state yesterday. That's washing out, but the main action is coming out of Texas, where we have both an upper low and a bit of a surface low. You can see that upper low over Texas, and of course a lot of clouds and moisture coming out of the Pacific. So we're going to be dealing with a rather wet day. This morning temperatures generally in the 60s, but that's going to be changing come midweek. We actually may see some 40s across the central and northern part of the state come Thursday morning. And rain is, again, the big story, as we see that the QPF is forecasting on the order of 1 to 2 inches widespread across the area, with perhaps as much as 3 across eastern half of the state. So it is likely to be a rather wet day Monday, early Monday even, and all the way through perhaps Tuesday morning. Storm Prediction Center is not outlooking any severe weather for days 1 or 2, but day 3 they have outlooked a large area from the southeast Georgia area along the eastern seaboard all the way up into New York ahead of the main system. And the tropics still relatively active as we're heading into the latter part of September here. Nadine moving away from everybody other than the Azores, of course. And then we have an area approaching the Leeward or Windward Islands, and only a small chance. Conditions just not favorable for much development of that system. But of course, that system fairly far south. We'll have to be watching that as it gets into the Caribbean. All right, 06Z GFS model. So we're going to look at modeling. And as you can see from the surface map, there is the possibility that we might see, an isolated patch of light rain or a small shower as moisture increases today. But the big thing is we're going to see much more in the way of clouds. The two troughs, the one over Texas and the one coming in from Canada, will begin to phase up on Tuesday and Wednesday, and that's when the colder air will really arrive. But in the meantime, the southern trough is going to be wet, and that certainly paves the way for a rather wet Monday. Probably not going to rain, all the time, but off and on, so showers numerous. The two troughs finally phase up pretty well on Tuesday, and of course that means most of the significant weather is over into the eastern part of the country and out of Alabama, but we could still see showers, especially Tuesday morning, light rain and showers over the area. So, and again, you remember we saw SPC noting the severe weather threat because the trough phases up there. The trough, the major energy moves on up into New England, but we establish a fairly good trough over the eastern part of the country on Wednesday, and you can see that fetch, if you follow that back, it's coming out of Alaska, and so that brings a surface high down into our area, and so that's going to be a coolish day with much drier air. We'll have a rather cool morning with clear skies on Thursday morning, and that could be our coolest morning that we've seen so far this year, with surface high pressure in the area and clear skies, good radiational cooling, and that should again, one of our coolest mornings. And on that day, probably mid upper 70s for highs across the area. Friday, the surface high settles in over the Gulf Coast, and Saturday it's still there. We are seeing a front approaching on Saturday, just like we noted yesterday, but the front is not going to have much moisture to deal with, so the result is that we expect that front to come through dry, perhaps seeing some clouds on Saturday and maybe even early Sunday, but we should dry out after that passes on Sunday. And looking out into voodoo country very quickly as we head for the 1st of October. Wow, can't believe the year is getting so close to the end, but we see a nice trough over the eastern half of the country. The GFS does show a bit of a ridge building in, so we warm up towards the end of September, but not significantly, not 90s for sure, but maybe into the lower 80s for certain. And then we see this nice trough with a good rain chance at 1st of October. Well, thanks for tuning in to the Weather Xtreme video. I expect James Spann to be back with the next edition first thing on Monday morning. In the meantime, I hope that your day and your week will be good ones. Godspeed.
Thank you for trusting us to be your #1 source for news
in all of Central Alabama.
in back-to-back ratings periods.
More people watched ABC 3340
than any other station in Birmingham.